Greetings, everybody. Welcome here. I'm the one true divine feminine and psychic investigator, Tarot. I'm here to spread light and love and angelic vibes across the universe. Today, I want to start off with a few handmade cards, and then we're going to get into something really special today. But let's start with these cards first, because I keep hearing about more things that are happening. So, Hitman. Another one bites the dust, and another one's done, and another one's gone. Another one bites the dust. Ooh, dun, 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 dun. Another one bites the dust. Yeah. Thank you. Whether he just left the country with the money that he was paid the $100,000, or whether you guys chased him out, however it went down, I'm good with that. Thank you, God. All right, there's a few things because my phone is so messed up, and I've tried doing the stuff that Philosophical has mentioned to fix it, and I can't get them out. And the new phone I bought, they infected within 15 seconds. So regarding the fake reality TV show that they were running, I think they were doing it partly by using our own phones. I had a number of apps that I went into about 2 weeks ago. They looked like normal apps like Chrome and the Play Store and things like that. And when I opened up dozens of them, every single one had a connection to Wi-Fi, every single one. They've also jury-rigged my phone so that though it looks like the Bluetooth off, you have to delve about 3 layers in to find the Bluetooth connection to disconnect it. There was a hotspot with tethering, and I tried to erase the password, and I could erase it, but I could not replace it. So they're probably using our own phones to broadcast the fake reality TV show with the hidden camera. And I tried to get into my husband's phone to sort that out, and I can't even access his apps. So eventually, yes, I'm going to have to hire someone to come into my house to try to get rid of the audio bugs that I know are still there, as well as the hidden cameras, because I cannot deal with the phones. They've got it in such terrible lockdown. And because they're really monkeying with things on my phone and the computers at the library now, I want to make sure the FTC report gets in regarding the fake reality TV show, because they shut down the computers here twice regarding that. So I know they are very upset and worried about this coming out. And again, they were voyeuring us in all conditions of our life, shower, etc., selling it to patrons for money. So please make sure this FTC report gets in. I will try to call and follow up, but you can't seem to get a human being. But I sent the report a variety of ways, and I want the reality TV show fixed. Now, I do hear that this is happening, and I think this is great. So Jupiter in Aries, sudden changes in law enforcement, sudden changes in policies in the justice system, change in leadership, in all of these things. Why? Because of the corruption. And I've heard that, since the news of what's been going on with me has been coming out, that people are stepping forth to make this happen. Aries and Jupiter, it's like a sudden fire under law enforcement and the justice systems behind to make changes and get things done. And if we're harnessing this energy this way, this is a beautiful use of astrology, right? It's all about knowing what the energies are and harnessing them for better in the world. That's the conscious use of this tool. And yes, this is going to be a big RICO mob case, baby. And it's hit a number of cities. And so those of you that are turning yourselves around here in my hometown, I appreciate it, because I've been up against odds worse than you could possibly imagine. And you letting him into my house really didn't help, right? And again, they just foiled another murder plot. Here's another one. Privilege has absolutely nothing to do with decency, I'm finding out. And yes, for some of you, your neighbors are not who you think they are, and they are doing some scary ass shit. And some of you know who I'm talking about. Some maybe not, but some of you know. Now, I'm going to end before I actually get started with a feeling of gratitude, because lately I've had the feeling of wanting to flee my country because of all the stuff that's happened to me, right? And just a feeling like we're absolutely falling apart here. And I keep praying for hero stories, when what I realize is the hero stories are happening all around me. I just haven't been paying enough attention. And it is the real cops and the real FBI agents and the real lawyers and the real judges who are helping to right this situation and to keep me safe and to keep my family away from harm. So the stories are there. I just need to embrace them. Why? Because I've always loved my country and I don't want to feel like I have to flee because of the morass that we've fallen into. So I'm realizing the hero stories are already there. I just need to see them and embrace them and be grateful for them. So that's the message with that. Now, today I'm going to do something a little daring. Um, and often, I'll be honest with you, astrologers, most of us like to just kind of operate under the veil, right? We know that there are people that like to hear what we have to say, but those are the people that are already inclined that way. For many of us, we like to just keep things on the down low because people don't understand what we do. Sometimes they think it's evil, or they think it's witchcrafty, when in reality, every astrologer I know, and I've met thousands of them at conferences, are absolutely wonderful people. In fact, most of them are Christians. There's some like me who hold those basic beliefs, but then also look to other traditions around the world for wisdom. And by and large, I find them to be an absolute lovely, caring, empathetic uh, group of people who are very concerned for the plight of humanity. And so, because of this misunderstanding, I'm going to do something daring today, which is I'm going to explain how astrology can very much be used as a spiritual tool and a connection to the divine. And I'm going to do it by focusing around the planet of Neptune, the 12th house, and Pisces. And I'm going to do it in chunks because, again, learning astrology takes a lot of time and effort and learning, and it can be very confusing at first. And forgive me, because I am going to do some reading, because there's a lot here. And since I underwent some treatment several years ago, my memory is not what it used to be. And I just don't have the time to memorize all this. So I'm going to do a little bit of reading so I don't miss the key points. But I want to share things with you because I know that people have these vast misunderstandings. So I'll start off by saying, for me, in my belief system, your spiritual DNA is literally written in the stars. And what an astrologer does is they learn how to read that map. So it's a way to peer into a person's personality, their soul, what things are coming in their lives, etc. However, it's meant to be used for good in the world, to provide guidance, wisdom, how to avoid various pitfalls or difficulties in your life. Even if your stars are aligned for you to meet those challenges head on, it's how do you meet them head on in a good way. How can you gain the most benefit from your hard work? A lot of astrologers do career counseling because your natural proclivities or tendencies to do well in certain areas are also written in the stars. It helps us to understand lessons that we have to learn, and it is a way for us to find our connection to God. Very much so. This tool should only ever be used for good in the world. It should never be used to harm others. Because when you do that, it's like you're sucking the living life out of a human being, right? Using it to suck their spirit out of them, kind of like in vampire fashion. So in my instance, I didn't do this. I used my skill set to help solve some crimes, and they were horrible activities involving children, sex trafficking, filming people sleeping with others at orgy style parties, It also led us to find some of the various addictions that people are facing that are clouding their judgment, with delusions and drugs and gambling and sex addictions and things like that, basically turning them into zombies. So I myself look at crime solving with astrology as a very positive thing. And it should help us to learn about our spiritual nature. So you can see all of the energy lines there connecting us to the heavens. It's to help us to grow in consciousness and connection with the divine, and to use the symbology in the charts to guide others in making wise decisions for their life. That's how this tool is meant to be made. It was never intended for people to harm others. By looking up, okay, what house are they in? How can I wreck that part of their life? That's a complete misuse of this spiritual gift. Now, today I am going to dive into one particular planet and its meaning. So I've entitled this Neptune, Pisces in the 12th house. And Neptune is ruled by Pisces, and its natural resting place in the chart is the 12th house. Now, for each one of us, it actually lands differently, but this is where it likes to reside. It's its natural home. And my purpose in doing this is so that you can begin to see the connection that exists between our Creator as individuals, as seen through our birth charts. It is a tool of the divine when used wisely. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with astrology, the terminology and relationships with all of the planets can be very overwhelming, especially at first. So I'm going to do this in a whole series so that we can go slowly enough so that the information can be absorbed. As with all planets, there are potentialities for good and evil. Okay. So that's true with the Pisces energy. You can use it, I believe it can be used for good or evil. When it's used for good, it is a great connection to God. When Neptune and Pisces is used for evil, it can be like hearing false voices from God that direct you to do crazy things, stuff like that. So each planet has the potential for good or evil, and it all comes down to how we harness the energy. So God gives us the free will. Now, I do believe that there are some things that are destined to happen because God has ordained it. And if that is meant to be, then no matter what man does, the thing will come out as God had planned, right? Other things are completely dependent upon how we harness our free will. And I also believe there's a little bit of shit happens that occurs in there. But these things that are meant to be fated will occur no matter what interventions take place, because it is like the hand of God reaching through the skies and saying, I believe I will make this happen. Again, other things are more mutable depending upon our actions. Now, that all being said, let's look into the high vibing meaning of the planet Neptune. I'm not really even going to get into the low vibing stuff because the opposites are so extreme. So for a little while, we're just going to focus on when Neptune is working properly in our charts. And then later we'll talk about the other energies. But when used wisely, the 12th house, Neptune and Pisces, can show a strong desire to return or merge with God and Christ consciousness. See this woman? She's moving the cowrie shells. She's trying to look behind the veil. And this also goes back to the one drop theory, because we all arise from the same consciousness, the same energy. We are all connected, right? No matter our color, our gender, our nationality, sexual orientation, race, or religion. Why? Because we spring from the consciousness and the mind of God. Even though we're one drop and an individual, we swim in this same pool of energy. And, if we're wise, it's like we can look from the mountaintop and see this connection between us all, if we're able to do that. Now, the 12th house can be part of your chart where God literally whispers in your ear. Now, for some, this will come by going to church, by praying, by running the rosary, or various other practices. For others, this will come through seeing things behind the veil. And you can see this shaman trying to connect with the other side through meditation and yoga and chanting, right? And dream work and hypnotherapy. If you're a good channel, God will try to operate through you using this outlet, and that's Neptune in the 12th house, or the Piscean energy, because they're kind of related. This can enable you to be of service to humanity, to provide unconditional love and wisdom. A 12th house Neptune finds purpose when you can find meaning in your life, to use your gifts to serve the world with a good heart. Okay, that's the high vibe portion of that. Now, Neptune in the 12th, or a strong Pisces placement, can help to reveal the consciousness of the soul. It is the sea, or collective consciousness, and therefore holds all of the emotions, all of the actions, all of the thoughts that humanity has created over time. So if you wonder why the world is a mess right now, it's because we keep selling up the collective consciousness with drugs, sex, too much, alcohol, following false prophets, various addictions. And if we want to clean up the sea of unhappiness and find a brighter future, we have to be more careful about what we pour into the waters of the consciousness, right? Because when we do too much of that, we begin to find the various possessions that take a hold of people's souls and turn them upside down, right? The addiction to drugs, to gambling, to alcohol, and the various things that, and just thoughts of mayhem, murder, etc. That all goes in to the collective consciousness, right? And that's why we have the troubled world that we have. Greed, corruption. I mean, anything that it is that takes possession of our souls to do evil in the world. Now, our thoughts create our reality. I do believe that. And so therefore, I'm trying to clean up my own thoughts. On a national level, this is also true. And we are swimming through the murky waters we've been creating. But wouldn't it be better to have a cleaner ocean to swim in? And that's why we need to use the Pluto return to remake our value system in America. We all feel the need for change and a desire to quit swimming in the darkened, murky waters. Those who are really tapped in, such as some Buddhist monks, can actually use this energy, this collective consciousness, to move their soul out of their body and temporarily place it in another person's body to see life through their eyes. I have read many books on Buddhism, and people that are very tapped in have the ability to do that. They only do it, again, for good purposes. But if you're very connected to the collective consciousness, you can feel energy, you can feel things as they happen, before they happen, that sort of thing. For example, I read one case of a monk who was very tapped in, and he literally in his mind's eye saw the sinking of a vessel that happened wherein hundreds of people were tossed into the ocean and were drowning. And because he was so tapped in, he felt the agony, the deaths, the feelings of all the people who were going under. He read later about the incident. And this was also something that happened to a friend of mine, another example of how we're connected energetically, but we don't know it. She was at my house and talking to me when her uncle died. That energy traveled. She picked it up in her mind's eye. She saw his accident as it was happening and then ran out of the house screaming to get home to get the phone call about the death that she had already witnessed. So there is this emotional consciousness that connects us all as people, and it just depends on how tapped in and connected you are. And it can be a good thing or very hard thing, depending, right? Because there's a lot of harsh emotions out there, as well as joy and love. But there is that ability to be empathic, to see things behind the veil, to connect to things that you might not necessarily expect. Okay, so we are all more connected than we realize, and that connection happens through Neptune and the 12th house. And we want to get to the point where we quit swimming in the murky waters, like you see here, right? With snakes and evil things afoot. We want to get to the point where we can tap into that energy for healing and for better things in the world, right? Here, that energy is running through a person's chakra systems. Now, for many people with a high vibing Neptune, there will be a strong emotional pull to know the origin of all things, to find the truth of our creation. And you can see this person is, they're enlightened. They're trying to tap in. They're trying to find all of those answers. They want to breathe into being a beautiful world with our thoughts and positive deeds. Neptune, just like the ocean, is not only our consciousness, but it acts as the lungs of our planet too. And that's why breathing exercises, such as the breath of fire, can be so very healing and cleansing. Okay. And that's where you breathe really hard and fast through your gut center and fast to remove the old energies and bring in the new energies. Okay. All right. So for many people with a strong Neptunian placement, there will be a sense of life is nothing but a dream. We're spiritual beings, after all, having a human experience. We're driving around basically in a car that is here only to cart our soul around. And the purpose of this dream is to learn lessons that God has cast before us by having us enter the planet at a specific time and place. That divine act of creation occurs with the planets, asteroids, and stars in a specific place to help guide the things that we must learn. This is kind of the basic premise that so many astrologers follow. And it's okay for people to disagree. I'm all right with that. We all come to God in a different way. So it's all right. I see somebody's disagreeing, but I'm all right with that, right? So we're all here to learn. And just as the moon has a north node and a south node, so do the other planets, including Neptune. Now, the south node relates to past lives or times, things that we learn, that we lean on rather than grow from, the tried and the true versus the new you are meant to master. It can help you, but also hinder you from growth if you lean too hard on the past. Now, the south node of Neptune in Aquarius can have many negative connotations that relate to various traumas in this life or others. Since Neptune is also very much linked to God energy, the south node can also cause people to fall into chaotic patterns. So this is the card of chaos, right? We have a little devilish energy whirling up trouble in the universe. And when people lean on the south node of Neptune, you can see various things like when people try to link in a weird way to God energy, the south node can be wars over various belief systems, people going out and bombing churches because they don't like a particular belief, like the big shootout that happened at the Tree of Life synagogue just a few years back. Under this configuration, various acts of terrorism can be committed in God's name, often against others who have different belief systems. Okay, on the brighter side, the north node of Neptune is currently riding in Leo. To move forward in a positive direction, we are being called to find God in our heart centers. And this is the Hierophant card, which is a church man. And you can see his heart center is all lit up. And the goal with the North Node in Leo is to bring forth leadership in churches that lead us towards more love, peace, equality, and heart-filled understanding, to find creative ways to solve problems. This North Node is meant to help us realize that our actions create the collective consciousness. In other words, we are literally breathing, thinking, praying, and chanting our world into being. So harnessing the energy wisely requires us to find leadership that can bring God to earth by changing our hearts. Okay, now that we have the basics down about how a high vibing Neptune works, I want to take a look at Jesus's chart, birth chart, because Jesus was born exactly who he was meant to be, and his life path was truly written in the stars, as are all of our paths. He had Neptune in Pisces square to Venus. And of course, what does Venus represent? It represents love. In this case, it was love for humanity. He also had this very strong godlike energy opposing a very powerful configuration with Pluto, and Mars. Now, Pluto, remember, is all about can be about transformation. It also has a lot to do with the underbelly of our society, with crime, corruption, greed, dark emotions, things like that. Mars has to do with anger, with jealousy, with force, with warlike energy. So he had these very tough configurations sitting at the opposite end of his God mission. Okay, so I'll just hold this one up here. And so this Mars and Pluto conjunction was very, very powerful. So in other words, he was on a mission from God. That's Neptune in Pisces. To serve humanity. That's Venus. Why? Because Venus is, God loves his people, right? He values people. But in order to enact his mission, he would have to transform. That's Pluto. Our thinking while making a huge sacrifice. Pluto and Mars. That's violence, right? His death. Okay, this is how this energy works when you're able to read what's in the stars. Okay, now, Jesus' south node of his natal Neptune was in Scorpio. And this can have a lot to do with betrayal. So here you can see the devil card, because he was betrayed by Judas Iscariot, who had jealousy in his heart and was bound by earthly things, right? He took money for the betrayal. Scorpio energy has everything to do with being able to rise from the ashes. You're going to love this, right? And soar like a phoenix. And of course, we all know that Jesus did this too after he was nailed to the cross. So his south node of Neptune fell into the 11th house in astrology, which has a lot to do with hopes, dreams, wishes, friends. And he was betrayed by a friend, right? Society, past life traumas, and literally gifts from the king. No, so his sacrifice, which was Judas's betrayal, set the hopes for a better future for humanity by allowing him to ascend to the right hand of his Father, the Creator. Now, you could say this was all a mistake, except for we know that these things had to happen in order for things to be set in motion, right? Okay. Now, the Sun-Moon conjunction that was showing in his chart at the time represented a new beginning for humanity. Why? Because when you have a new moon, that's always a new, fresh start. So new moons are always a good time to plant seeds, because that's an opening for possibilities. And in this case, it was a big start, right, for humankind. Not only was his ascension a new beginning for himself, but his life path, as seen through the stars, enabled him to bring God down to earth by the sacrifice of his earthly body. That's the Mars-Pluto conjunction. Transforming his death to bring in good things. Now, there was another configuration in the sky at the same time. That was Jupiter and Uranus. And they were, well, let's just take a look at it one by one. The Uranus conjunct Jupiter portion of his chart indicates the sudden turn of events that will bring in an awakening. That's the Uranus energy. That's maverick. That's thinking outside of the box. That's bringing in new energy. This awakening would alter the lives of humanity. Now, Jupiter is ruled by the sign of Sagittarius, which is all about seeking the truth and finding a path to the divine. Sagittarius tends to be open-minded. At least that's how it plays itself out in my chart. It also rules the 9th house, which has both everything to do with faith, your belief system, your philosophy, and also the law, and expanding our mind and consciousness, which of course we all do in different ways. Whether it's meditation or prayer or whatever, it's about expanding your mind and trying to touch the heavens, right? It'll often show how we find our path to God. In my chart, I have a configuration that meant that I was meant to seek for God in unusual ways, and I have. Part of that was various trips I took all over the world with my backpack to see how other cultures approached the divine. And in each case, I always learned something very fascinating that seemed to ring true for me about how other people connected to God. Certainly, the 9th house also indicates our desire to find the truth. Now, for some, that will be, how we look into other cultures and systems of belief to find our way. For myself, I think that most religions have far more in common than we have that separates us. For example, the Buddhists will say they don't really believe in a God. They will spend their entire lives meditating, trying to find the beautiful white light. To me, that is just simply another name for God consciousness. Okay, there was a connection in Jesus's chart to Saturn. Okay, Saturn often indicates hardships and lessons, and certainly he would have to endure many hardships and lessons while his time was being played out here on Earth. And he had to go through those lessons in order to enact the mission that he had been given. Now, to create a new beginning for humanity, that was the sun-moon conjunction, he paid with his earthly life. That's Saturn. And yet his message, the message was Jupiter, has endured through time. That's Saturn. I would add that many ascended masters have similar kinds of configurations in their charts. We all learn differently. We all connect differently. That's why God sends down different teachers so that we can find our way back home the best way for each and every one of us. Now, Yogananda was a religious teacher from India. He has an autobiography called The Autobiography of a Yogi, right? So he was a yoga master. He had a conjunction with Neptune and his north node. So this also was opposite his Venus. He was meant to bring spirituality to the people. Okay, so we can see he did it in a different fashion, but he's trying to help people to tap into that higher consciousness. And he did it through service. So here are the helping hands, through yoga, through teaching people that everything was linked to energy, including our thoughts. And through his organization, the Self-Realization Fellowship, he taught meditation classes. So again, he was trying to connect people to their higher consciousness. The goal was for people to realize that we all have the ability to connect with the God Spirit. For him, a lot of it had to do with connecting through the mind and to be able to connect to the oneness that surrounds us, right? And his message was for us to realize that all along we had something tremendous operating within our spirits. Only sometimes can we realize this by coming down to earth. Sometimes in that earthly journey, we forget that divinity, and our mission is to re-find that connection. We can often do that through Neptune, Pisces in the 12th house, and we can also do it through the energy of Sagittarius, which rules the 9th house, I see. So I hope that helps. I know a lot of people have a lot of odd feelings about what astrology is or what it means, but when you use it wisely in the universe, it's a powerful tool to connect to the divine. So we're going to continue coming up with this energy of Neptune, the 12th house in Pisces, and we're going to keep with the high vibing stuff. the angelic vibes. And then after we do that, then we'll talk about what happens when you attach to Neptune in the wrong way. And that's when you start to get things like drug addictions and various things that pull your spirit down. All right, I hope that helps for people to understand. I'm trying to form bridges of communications. Why? Because I have some very kind people, Archangel Michael and Raphael, helping me. I don't know you, and yet I recognize that you have the true spirit of God in you. You connect in a different way than I do, and yet I can appreciate what you are doing to help me in my life. And I do connect to God. I might not do it the same way you do, but we still have the same creator, right? And I think we should spend more time trying to understand each other than what separates us, right? Um, because it's that lack of understanding that allows misconceptions to build over time. All right, I hope all this helps. And again, it's a little weird for me because usually we like to just fly under the radar with the stuff that we know. And yet, it's a great spiritual tool. And yes, I used it to help get us into the homes of people that are doing some horrible things, right? So that's a great use of astrology. And also solve my own crime. So I'm pretty happy about that. All right, well, God bless. I hope everybody has a wonderful Christmas season coming up. And my gratitude for all the helpers in the world is immense. I realize I need to change my thinking. I've been thinking, I have to leave here because so many bad things have happened, when in reality, I see all around me the good things that are happening instead. So it's a change of thinking. All right, thank you and God bless. Take care.